we'd all face the flag. Kerwin, you're in charge. With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good job, Kerwin. If you'll come to the microphone and tell everybody what brings you here tonight. There's the microphone.
My name is Kerwin, and I'm here to see my dad get an award.
And your father's name, what is his name?
Manuel Martinez.
Well, good to have your father here with us tonight. Thank you for coming to cheer him on. Thank you. Let's have a hand for Kerwin. Do we have a motion to approve this will be the March 10th meeting of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Roswell. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Councilman Orland, second by Councilmember Price. Does anyone in the audience have any questions regarding the consent agenda? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. First, we have the 2014 City Administrators Leadership Awards nomination, and that will be presented by Caeli.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have a happy item tonight. So we'll start off on a great note. This is the first annual City Administrators Leadership Award, and the award was created to recognize one City of Roswell employee who demonstrates the essence of leadership and who they are and what they do in their job at the City of Roswell. And I am really happy to have had 15 nominees for this award. So we know that our city employees are our greatest assets, and you know how great our employees are. But when you hear the names and see those who are here to stand up and be recognized tonight, you'll have even a better understanding. Because these are the people who not only do their job, and all our employees do their job, but these people do their job in a way that I can't even begin to describe, or else we'd be here really long time. But they are always on the job. They're always thinking about their job and how they can make their job better. But they're also thinking about their fellow co-workers and also our citizens, and that's one of the most important things that we do in delivery of services. So I'm really proud about that. And the criteria for the award was based not only on the city's vision and our core values, that's the minimum of what we do each and every day, but it was also about things that are leadership characteristics that we promote here in the city, such as striving for excellence, inspiring others in what they do, coming up with innovative ideas to solve problems, having a high level of commitment not only to the job but to others, sharing their knowledge with others and kind of being that go-to person, and of course, most importantly, demonstrating what we like to call customer delight. And that's one of the things that they do really well. Also, being a good listener and getting things done. So our recipient this year does all of those things, and you heard from his son who did the pledge, and so his name is Joel Martinez, so I'm going to ask Joel to join me up here
Let's have
at the podium.
Joel. Come on forward, Joel.
So, I have a favorite quote, sir.
Is your family here with you?
My son.
Bring him forward.
Come here, Coach.
And we're going to have some other people too, but so I have a favorite quote by John Quincy Adams that says, if your actions inspire others to dream more, to do more, to become more and learn more, you are a leader. And that's what Joel epitomizes in what he does here at the City of Roswell. In case you don't know, Joel works in our stormwater division. He's been here for 15 years with the City of Roswell. And the person who nominated Joel is one of his co-workers, Brady Hill. And some of the things that Brady said about Joel, and I'm going to read it so I don't forget anything. He's considered a leader among his peers. He's a go-to person for help and advice. He strives for excellence in everything that he does. He shares his knowledge with others by teaching, encouraging, and go out of his way to make sure that customer delight is delivered. He's also a good listener, and most importantly, no matter the circumstance, he treats others with respect. So I have an award to present to Yoel, and you know we'll want a photo op, but I also want to recognize him. And this little statue says, leaders stand out by the nature of their commitment and the integrity of their character, and that's what Yoel's about. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, yeah, but before you come down, I want to recognize our other nominees, and guys, for those of you who are here, all of them I know are not here, but AJ Argentina,
Stand up, please.
Ricky Burnett, Christina Lappin, Keith Lee, Dung Lu, Captain Ken McRae, Paul Piccirilli, Lieutenant David Shepard, Lieutenant Kevin Smith, Fire Chief Ricky Spencer, Ken Sumner, Brad Townsend, Ty Vo, Alice Wakefield. So now can we get a photo op?
And if we'll join.
Yeah? So come on, let's go. Yeah, we'll go from there. If the nominees, we'll get one with y'all, and if the nominees will make your way up there, we'll get a big group shot. So y'all start making your way up there, and then you don't want to do it. You put this one.
Okay, we'll take a few right over here, so just keep smiling. 1, 2, 3. And we'll take a few more, keep smiling. Great. Thank you.
Let's get everybody. No.
I would definitely need to smush in on this side if we can a little bit. All right, make sure we can get everyone in. Okay, everyone stay smiling and look over here. 1, 2, 3. Stay like that. Get a few more. And one more. Perfect. Thank you.
Good job. The employees who are recognized can stick around for the rest of the meeting, but you're also free to go home. Because I know you spend a lot of hours here at City Hall, and no requirement that you to continue here. No, not you two.
Nice try.
Next, we have a recognition for the Cultural Arts Division for the Kaleidoscope Awards. Who will be presenting that? Morgan Timmis. Is Morgan? There's Morgan. Come forward, Morgan. The best cultural event. Kaleidoscope Awards. So this is
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are really proud to have been recognized this year by the Southeastern Festival and Events Association. And we invited their director to be with us this evening to present it, but she wasn't able to join us, but she sent a comment that I'll just read. And of course, these are all the wonderful volunteers that make these things possible. Marie Epps, Gail Bohannon, Chuck Douglas, Sally Hansel, Marla Curlin, Sarah Chandler, Sheila Salito, Cheryl Small, Sharon Crumley, Jackie Daniels, and Robert Weinbarger, and we couldn't do it without those folks. She wrote, that Wendy Thomas, the director, wrote, "What happens when you combine cardboard, fried foods, country music, and a month-long event celebrating history? You have 4 of the best festivals in the Southeast. They were spotlighted at the Southeast Festival and Events Kaleidoscope Awards in Savannah on February 18th, and the ceremony was held in conjunction with the 11th Annual Southeast Festival and Events Conference. The SFEA incorporated a new category into this year's Kaleidoscope Award program since we recognize the importance culture brings to not only our traditions, but also to our communities. And what better way to do this than through a festival or event? It is only fitting that the inaugural award was given to the City of Roswell for Roswell Roots, being they had the foresight to begin this event 13 years ago, and that it has in itself become a tradition. Congratulations to all of you that have played a role in this event's continued success.
Congratulations.
And this is our award.
I want to thank everyone who has worked on this event and made this event the great success it has been. You know, as I tell people that February, an otherwise bleak month, it has really made February an exciting time and a time for something to happen. But I particularly want to thank the Groveway community, because they really were the beginning of this process. So Gail Bohannon, as representative of the Groveway community, I want to thank you and Groveway for really taking the leadership, and for everyone else who has helped them make it possible. It's a great celebration, and one that I know that will is not only it has become a tradition and will remain a tradition in Roswell for years and years to come, one that we can all be proud of. So thank you. One more hand for these folks. Good job. Now to the real business of the hard work of the City Council. I'd want to first call Councilmember Kent Eigelhart, liaison to the Admin Finance Department.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The two items tonight in this department are related to the special election to fill the unexpired term of municipal judge to be held on May 20th. The first is to approve a resolution to authorize Fulton County to conduct City of Roswell elections. Mr. Fisher, I don't know if there's anything more to say, but
I think that was said very well. It's consideration for that. We have to have this contract signed, and you have to give us permission to do so.
Do I have a motion?
move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Eigelhart. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember DePolito. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Second item is to approve the contract and then pay up to $8,606.40 for the to budget for this $4,303.20 for each special election and a runoff if necessary.
Correct. So we'll have the total amount that we owe Fulton County. If the special election doesn't happen, we get that reimbursed back to us.
And
Do we have a motion?
move to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilman Eigelhart. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember DePolito. Anyone in the audience have any questions? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
This time we'll hear from Councilmember Becky Wynn, liaison to the Community Development Department.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First item is CU 201303673, conditional use 1565 Holcomb Bridge Road. I'm not trying to pronounce it, Academy, Incorporated Land Lot 613, presented by Mr. Townsend.
Yes, this is a conditional use in the current zoning category for a private school. Council will remember we had an approval for a church on this location approximately a year and a half ago. That never took fruition, so the Regina Caeli is proposing to use this as a private school. This has been to the Planning Commission, has recommended approval. Staff has recommended approval. As you can see, this is an existing facility that has the old Amana Academy building on the rear with a gymnasium on the location on the front of it. It is accessed off of Holcomb Bridge Road. This is the current zoning. You can see it backs onto Martin's Landing, the green areas. It has commercial on its eastern and northern locations. Staff has recommended approval of this proposal. As part of their review in due diligence, Part of the building does not meet fire code requirements for putting children into classrooms, so they're actually removing a portion of the building on the same foundation and rebuilding that portion. This is a proposed site plan of the location of the development, showing the existing buildings and parking spaces. Staff would recommend approval of this application with the conditions that are included in your resolution of approval this evening. If you have any questions.
Does the council have any questions? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Townsend, I understand this was a school previously. It was the Amana Academy, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Is there any concern about the transportation aspects of this? I know that the entry and exit off into Holcomb Bridge is a little precarious.
My understanding, and they can expand on their type of schooling, is really for the children is just twice a week. It's not 5 days a week. So really the people that are there 5 days a week are usually just administrators, which is a lot less traffic impact than a normal if it was 100 students there 5 times a day, 5 times a week.
So our transportation department doesn't
Fine.
have any
They're
concerns
fine
about
with-
the existing conditions?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve with the 4 staff conditions.
Motion approved by Councilmember Wynn with the recommended conditions of staff. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Next item is CU 2014000051 and CV 2014000070. Roswell Auto Imports, 10469, 10471, 10473 Alpharetta Street. Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Councilmember Wynn. This is an application for a conditional use. The subject property is 3 locations. There are 3 existing buildings. There were 2 former restaurants and a dry cleaning location. What is being proposed under the conditional use is to move a used car establishment on 3/4 of the acre of this piece of property to meet the minimum requirement of 0.75 acres. As you can see, it is currently zoned C3. So the application is not a rezoning. It is a conditional use to be able to use the property as an auto dealership. The existing 2 existing buildings would be removed. One of the buildings would be retrofitted to be used for offices for the sales. When this was originally proposed, the applicant was proposing not to meet the detention requirements, and that's the site plan that the Planning Commission reviewed, and they did recommend denial of that application. They also were requesting variances to the minimum buffers, landscaping buffers around the property. A subsequent site plan has been submitted that meets the detention requirements and a majority of the landscaping requirements. Staff is recommending approval of this application with the minor variance to the small landscaping area. Of the 4 conditions that are placed in your resolution this evening, staff would like some rewording on condition number 3 and 4 because we're concerned that the infrastructure for the detention is put in place. It's actually where the parked cars are going to be located. So we're recommending that detention be put in prior to the issuance of the CO to be able to use that, as well as with their reconfiguration site plan. The parking lot does meet our code requirements now, so we're just recommending that that condition be reworded to that a final plat is recorded. That way we know we're getting 3/4 of an acre for this proposed conditional use. If you have any further questions at this time.
Does the council have any questions? Councilmember Eichelhardt.
So where do things stand now in terms of the stormwater in particular?
They're meeting the complete requirements for stormwater detention on the property.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Councilmember DiPolito.
Mr. Townsend, can you explain how the parking works here? It looks like they're double stacked and there's parking spaces where they don't have access. Do we have any code concerns over having parking spaces that are not actually accessible?
This row here is being double stacked because there's storage of the cars. The ones for employees or for people coming in are these, as well as these located in this area, and they're accessible and do meet the code requirements.
So with respect to the minimum number of parking spaces for customers, they meet that requirement?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Diamond?
I noticed in the Planning Commission discussion, there was not really an offer, but the applicant indicated that we could condition the number of cars to be in designated spaces. Was that something that was pursued, or because Planning Commission denied it, they didn't talk about it, or?
It wasn't pursued at Planning Commission, but the code does require that the cars on the site be in striped and designated parking spaces. It's really tough to control, and it's going to be an enforcement issue if they, don't maintain the circulation on and off the property. I mean, that's just going to be an enforcement issue that they're stacking them 3 deep instead of 2 deep.
But do we need to condition that they would, I mean, is that something that would come from us, or because the site plan has those stripes, that's what they're tied to?
You're conditioning it to a site plan. If you chose this use to be there, then those are where they're allowed the site location and be able to park the cars.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you. Mr. Townsend, what is going to happen with the existing structure?
There are 2 structures that are going to be demolished and removed. There's an existing restaurant here, and this existing restaurant would be removed. This building would be remain and be used for their offices, as well as they would add 2 bays for cleaning the cars on the rear of that building.
Do you know if there's any intention to do anything with that building, to renovate it, remodel it, so forth?
I'll let the applicant speak to that.
Okay. One last question on the entry drive. It doesn't appear that there are radii drawn on the 2 curbs. And I guess, is that something that gets worked out later with the transportation department?
Yeah, they're going to have to deal with the land disturbance permit for transportation, yes. But you're talking in these 2 locations?
Yeah, it just looks like it's incomplete.
Right. One of the other improvements to the area is we are eliminating a curb cut. Each of the 3 existing parcels did have curb cuts to Alpharetta Highway, so one of those is being removed.
Being removed.
There's 1 being removed, 2 will remain.
2 will remain.
Yes.
The plat I'm looking at only shows 1 curb cut. The question is, where's the second?
There's 1 going to remain here.
Thank you.
To that parcel.
Any other questions?
Yes,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Townsend, if we're going to be approving this site plan tonight, if it is approved, doesn't that curb cut need to be shown on there?
No.
It doesn't?
That'll be with the approval of whatever comes in for the LDP for that development on that piece of property.
Okay, so even though that
It's gonna be
piece of property is part of the of tonight's conditional use, they do not have to show that because it's a vacant lot, or it's going to
Yes.
be a vacant lot?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Price.
Yes, currently there are cars on,
Yes, there are.
yes, and
Used for storage.
it's called, it's related to cars online.
Correct.
And is that an acceptable use currently?
For storage, yes.
And so that didn't have to come to us, or?
No.
So it's just being stored on a vacant lot?
Correct.
Okay, was that the center lot or the
No, it was this northern lot.
northern lot? Okay, so is that presumably going to continue in that?
That's going to go away.
That's going to go away? Because they're going to come into the other two, or are they a totally separate entity?
They're separate entities.
Okay, but the building is going to be demolished on, just call it Lot 1?
Yes.
The northerly one? Lot 1 is going to have the building removed?
Correct.
And nothing put there until such time as they make an application?
The application to DRB to do something that would be approved under C3 zoning, or after June 1st, hopefully UDC zoning.
Okay, I noticed also that Transportation made comments that there needed to be sight lines coming off of, is it a Horton Drive, is that the name? And I tried to come out there today, and I actually couldn't. And there just wasn't an adequate sight. You could only turn right, in my opinion. I wasn't going to risk trying to turn left. In fact, even turning right, I decided not to do, and I backed up and went around the other way. And I'm not a chicken driver, but it just made me wonder, what is the use of that road? I mean, I guess it's a public road, but you really can't get out there. And if they're being asked to provide adequate proof that that road can be exited, which seems odd because there's no plan to abut that road or change that road.
Right, the layout or the location of Horton doesn't change.
Right, so why is that one of Transportation's comments? I guess it's not a condition, so it doesn't
I think
really
it was
affect it, but
I think it was a concern that the curb cuts for those locations, that the new curb cut on Horton would have the proper sight distance locations, which it does.
maybe someone from Transportation can comment, because it says verify sight distance for left turn out on Horton Drive. So it's not related to the curb cut, but related to Horton Drive itself, which is an existing road.
I think what they're probably showing is, in this area of the site, I think there might be a existing sign there.
If we could have someone from Transportation address that directly. Mr. Asenbrack, do you understand the question?
I think so, Mayor. I might want some clarification. Talking about Horton Drive, which comes through here.
Correct.
Very, very low volume road. But the issue was that we want to make sure when they, this is not a final site plan. We want to make sure that when they do a final site plan, that they've met their site distance requirements to come off of that road. So we're just want to make sure that they don't. Right. So it involves dumpsters and fencings and other structures to make sure that they don't cite one thing that would provide an obstruction for another. Yeah, I think it's back here on Horton Drive. Right. I think the issues, there's a used storage place back here, and I just want to make sure that when they're coming out that they don't have an obstruction. We will work with the applicant if this is approved to make sure that they don't violate any of that.
Okay, so that's the rear road turning left onto Horton Drive, not from Horton Drive to Alpharetta Highway. Okay.
Other questions? Councilmember Wynn.
Mr. Townsend, also looking at the Transportation Department recommendations was to an interparcel connectivity with Track 2. Is that part of the site plan? I don't see it on there.
That is not currently existing in the site plan, no.
Okay, then I'll have to talk to Mr. Rowe later on that one. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you. This entire parcel is 1.27 acres. Actually, if you combine the three parcels. Currently, it's three parcels, correct?
Yes.
So the applicant would have to combine up to 0.75 acres in order for this to be effective?
For a used car at conditional use, yes. That's our minimum requirement.
So anything that's done tonight would only take place after the property is combined?
Yes.
So the site plan we're looking at now shows 0.75 acres, but if they were to receive an approval for this the way it is written, they could have up to a 1.27 acre car lot. Used car lot.
That's incorrect.
Why not?
site plan shows .75 for the use.
But the entire property would be zoned for one?
No, we're not
the whole-
rezoning anything. It's
or
a
the
conditional
whole-
use.
The whole property, I'm sorry, would have a conditional use?
No, the .75 would have the conditional use.
I don't see where it's written that way. Can you show me that?
It's a letter of intent, change it. Yeah, but this shows the 7.5. This is the letter from the architect indicating purchase of 3 tracts of property, create a tract with a minimum of 3/4 of an acre, and adhere to all provisions of the chapter dealing with used car, with the market remaining 5.2 acres for sale to a commercial development.
So in order to limit the conditional use to the .75 acres, the whatever the motion is would need to specifically state that? Because the
No,
resolution.
you just need to approve the site plan.
Well, the resolution that's in our book is for 3 addresses.
We can put it in.
So we're effectively, the way this is written, is approving all 3 parcels.
No, effectively, it's just controlling it because the site plan says minimum allowable for used car, 3/4 of an acre.
I think we can address this when we get to the motion if the motion isn't sufficient. I understand Councilmember DiPolito's concern. We want to be clear. But I think we can clarify it in the motion, Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you. My last question, Mr. Townsend, is our standards of review specifically state, number 5 is whether the zoning proposal is in conformity with the policies and intent of the future development plan. And in your notes, you wrote that the vision and intent of this area indicates that the vision established by the Midtown Roswell LCI is to create a mixed-use, pedestrian-friendly corridor and activity center that builds a better sense of community. Can you explain to me how you think that this proposal adheres to that?
I think when you start with the vision of the 2030 comp plan, you're dealing with rezoning applications and changing zoning from parcel to parcel. I think there's a different standard related to when you're dealing with a conditional use.
So you think that the proposal for
Was
this...
consistent with the comp plan, yes.
You think it's consistent with the comp plan, so you think it's a mixed-use, pedestrian-friendly use?
I think there's an improvement to the property with the proposed use.
Well, I guess you and I have different visions of what a mixed-use, pedestrian-friendly corridor is, which clearly, to me, this is not. Thank
Okay.
you.
Other questions? Thank you. I'm sorry. Councilmember Price.
In looking at the Planning Commission minutes on page 8 out of 34, there was apparently a meeting of city officials or city people, employees, and the applicant. And I just wondered if any guarantees, promises, or implied approval was given at that time.
None to my knowledge, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Eichelhardt.
I had missed this before, but on the site layout plan, it talks about, it's where it says the minimum allowable lot size, 0.75 acre for used auto dealership. Under that, maximum allowable lot coverage, 25%. and the proposed total lot coverage 7.3%. How is that possible when it's almost all asphalt?
The lot coverage is building only.
Right, so the total impervious is 74. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Any other questions? Thank you. At this time, we'll hear from the applicant.
You want to put the site plan up, or you want me to put this one? It doesn't matter with me. But I think. Mayor, members of the council, I'm Don Rollator. My address is 11660 Alpharetta Highway, Suite 630, Roswell, Georgia. I'm here tonight on behalf of this applicant for this conditional use permit, Mr. Ramin Ruhi. Ramin, would you stand up for just a second so we can see who you are? Thank you very much. This property is located on Alpharetta Street, south of Holcomb Bridge Road. It's the old Mrs. Winters, another fast food restaurant that's been gone, and a dry cleaners. All are vacant. Mr. Ruhi has the property under contract to purchase it. If he purchases the property, subject to this approval, then the automobile storage facility on the northernmost part of this property would cease. He intends to buy the entire property.
Would you show us where that storage, what's that?
I believe that's presently right here. Is that correct? It has nothing to do with him. It's unrelated. Presently, the property is owned by Sanford Orkin and his son Kenny. They have been the owners for many years and ground leased the property for restaurant operations for a long period of time. I want to explain who Ramin is and how he got here. Ramin has been in the import automobile sales business in the city of Roswell on Alpharetta Street for 16 years. Roswell Auto Imports, just south of the old shopping center antique store site, is his present business. The way he got here is the Fulton County School Board came and said, we are going to take the entire old shopping center site and we are going to take your property for the construction of a new school. So he didn't exactly come here voluntarily. He's coming kicking and screaming. Subsequent to that, he told the school board, he said, my trade and my business for the last 16 years has been right here on Alpharetta Street. And they said, let us see if we can assist you. His present location is 3/10 of a mile south of this proposed property. There were some discussions among the Orkins and the school board and officials at the city and Mr. Ruhi. As a result of those discussions, he was encouraged to place this property under contract. Now let's all be plain for a minute. I want this to be straight. Nobody at the city or otherwise said, this is a guaranteed slam dunk, we want you here, all you got to do is breathe and it's yours. But what's important is he was encouraged to proceed. Nobody at any time said, we don't want your business here, we don't want you here, we'll not approve it. If that had been the case, I'm sure he would have gone elsewhere. He didn't find this site found him. Barry Major is the real estate professional on behalf of the Orkins who continued the deal. At that point in time when this was all decided, Mr. Ruhi got Brad Ripple and he filed a conditional use application and he requested 2 variances. Those variances were not well received and they have been withdrawn. In all candor, I think when the discussion was had with the city, the variances were never discussed. So when they came to the city and they came to your professional staff, they were unhappily surprised. So those variances have been withdrawn. The only variance request we have now is a minor variance right along the curvature of Horton Drive to go from 10 feet to 5 feet there so the building can stay where it is and a car or two that's being prepped can still fit in there. The remainder of the property, both on Highway 9, both on Alpharetta Street and on Horton Drive, will have the 10-foot buffer. So that's how Mr. Ruhi got here. He had no idea of this. He had operated in Roswell for 16 years. He has an impeccable business record, never had a complaint, never had a police problem, good citizen. This is his only business. He sells imported cars for a living. He is in the process of educating his children, raising his family out of his business of 16 years in the city of Roswell. So that's how all this started. When you look at this property and you spread out your scope of your lens a little bit, you'll find that it's an intense retail area or more. There's north is a restaurant and retail zone C3. South is a self-storage facility that's zoned industrial. That's his immediate backdoor neighbor. East is an office, but it's zone C3, and west is a used car facility, zone C3. The comprehensive plan under the present zoning ordinance shows this entire area as commercial. He's made an application for commercial use. In the C3 district, the most intense commercial district in the city, a conditional use permit is required for the operation of an automobile sales lot. This application is made under the current zoning ordinance of the City of Roswell. The UDC has no application to this property in this hearing. It does not take effect until at least June 1st. The decision is being made tonight under the existing zoning code. I anticipate that your decision and your recommendations will be based on the current zoning code. I think I've covered the variances, and I think I've covered the other part, the conditions. The staff has proposed 4 conditions. I have discussed it with the applicant, and we find those conditions to be acceptable. We have no argument with the conditions that are printed and they're part of the application tonight. In summary, this applicant is entitled to a conditional use permit. The criteria set forth in section 31.1.12 is that the request bear a reasonable relationship to the public health, safety, morality, or general welfare. These 4 requirements must be the basis for your decision. I don't think anyone will argue that the operation of an automobile sales facility is detrimental to the public health. That it affects public safety, it's got to generate far less traffic than a restaurant or a drive-in restaurant that might be located at that location. I don't think anyone would argue that it affects the morality of the public. It's not a massage parlor, it's not a strip club, or that it interferes with the general welfare. That's a broader term. I want to take that a little bit further in that statement. I can't imagine it affecting the general welfare in a negative way. I've never heard anybody say, I just can't stand to eat at Hugo's or go to the dentist near where I could buy an imported car. There's a disconnect there. It just kills the mood. How about, I just can't send my kids to school anywhere near an automobile sales facility. I've never heard that in my life. There's no negative impact on other businesses. I don't know how you would explain that to me that there could be. It doesn't impact parking. It does not block the view. There's little traffic generated in comparison to any other use. It does not generate excessive amounts of water or sewage capacity. There's no light pollution. It doesn't generate crime. He has a clean record for 16 years. If we do this stormwater storage facility, it will certainly reduce stormwater runoff, where I understand we have a problem to the south now. On the other hand, denying this conditional use application takes away Mr. Ruhi's business, which he's worked 16 years to build. For the property owner, it prevents a sale and denies him a reasonable economic use of his property. These storefronts have been vacant for a long, long time. I have 2 points here. Point 1, on Alpharetta Highway, within a half mile of this facility, there are 11 used car sales facilities. It's the truth. Now, we're not increasing the number of used car sales facilities if we allow Mr. Ruhi to move from location 1 to location 2. We are replacing his, but that's all we're doing. Why are those dealerships any different than this location? There is no difference. You may not discriminate against him based on, we don't really think this is the right use here, or we envision a walkable, pedestrian-friendly corridor and activity center. Those aren't grounds on which you must make your decision. It just doesn't fly that way. Let me give you a better example. This property's been on the market forever. Barry Major is one of the most capable commercial realtors that I know. We use him with our clients. I've used him with my family. If someone had a different use for that property that might be more attractive to some of you or some of me personally, then there's nothing has prevented someone from coming in and putting that property under contract in the last year, in the last 2 years, in the last 3 years. If that pedestrian-friendly facility were in the process of development, somebody would have bought this and proceeded. My honest feeling with you is, in that area on either side of the road, the only way you're going to create that kind of environment that the Midtown Roswell LCI talks about, and which is not a legal reason to deny this application, the only way you're going to do it and make it work is for the city to buy the property, grade it flat, develop a plan, and offer it for development. Let me cite you an example nearby. There was an ugly old gas station and an ugly old strip center in downtown Alpharetta next to the ugly old city hall. That city came in, they bought it, they knocked it all flat, they designed a new city hall, they got a library to come in there, and they've offered the rest for retail and office development. They took the bull by the horns. The reason I'm telling you this is not to shame you or degrade you. My reasoning is that it's too narrow. If you look all down Alpharetta Street, because of the way this city developed, you have these very narrow retail strips on either side of the road that then blend into older residential neighborhoods. They are not wide enough to put a substantial use and a substantial parking lot on in order to make it work. It's linear and it needs to be fatter. That's not to say you can't do it, and I look forward in the opportunity in this city at some point to come forward with part of it and see it work. But I have serious reservations about it because of its shape and its history, and the fact that it's owned by a myriad of little bitty property owners. So to assemble any part of it, if you've ever had any involvement with property assembly, is a real challenge. You got to put all those people together and keep them happy long enough to get it zoned and then get it bought without somebody dying, leaving town, or going bankrupt. It's a real challenge. There's good things happen if this is approved. It gets 2 obsolete buildings removed. It kills a curb cut on Alpharetta Street. It puts a fresh facelift on the 3rd building that's to remain. It doesn't increase the number of dealerships on the street. It replaces his current business. It won't affect the character of the area in a negative way. You get trees and landscaping and water retention that you did not have. So the argument is, while it may not be beautiful and it may not be a glorious thing in your eyes, it's a step in the right direction. We're knocking down buildings, we're putting grass and trees where there weren't any before, we're putting a man in there who's a businessman. If this LCI that we've conceived works, he's not going to just sit there and go, I'm not selling my car dealership at any price. When the right size dollars come along, he'd be the first guy in line. He's not foolish. But that day is not here. But for the property owner and for the business owner who wants to be the property owner here, the day is here and the day is today. If we don't do this, let's look at that. What do we have? My opinion, for the next goodness knows how long, we're going to have 3 old empty buildings there. We're going to have no increase in water retention, which apparently we need from what runs downhill from there. We're going to have an old eyesore there. We're not going to have any improved landscaping. We're still going to have all the curb cuts if somebody uses them for some other purpose that works. Vacant buildings on vacant property in the city of Roswell do nothing to improve it. Losing an independent tax-paying business owner does nothing to improve Roswell. The real solution to this application is to approve it. Knock down 2 old buildings, put the 3rd building in good order, put the property back in use, make it look better, and let future development buy it out for a profit when it comes along. We gain now and we gain later. To me, that's a win-win situation. That's pretty much my feelings. I want to reserve some time for rebuttal. But this is a different one. The frustration to me for Mr. Ruhi is that this just all dropped on his head. Not in his lap, it dropped on his head. He didn't want to go anywhere. He's fine, he's happy, everything's running well. And the system comes in, which it has a completely legal right to do, condemns him and takes him. Golly. So, that's my story for you. It's conditional use. The criteria are the things I talked about with you with health and safety and welfare and morality. And I think that's where our request lies. We'd like for you to do that, and we'd like for you to grant the small variance that we have that just makes the property work. I don't think it affects anybody poorly other than that. As a technical note, to listen to transportation's comments, we migrated this curb cut on Horton Drive substantially away from the intersection so that it would meet their concerns at the time that we go for final plat approval. So we have tried to take into consideration all the things that the city expressed as concerns, and we're trying to get to point B. I would note in this presentation that the staff recommendation is for approval, both for the use and for the variance. I appreciate your time. I thank you for listening to us. I'm glad I got here before you really got started. I had to hustle the last few minutes, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Mr. Rollator, I'll ask the council if they have any questions in a moment. I was curious about one question. The variance that is requested to allow the building to remain where it is, I'm just wonder why you have to get a variance to leave a building where it is.
Brad?
If that's what I understood.
The variance requirement that they are not meeting is in that location that he's pointing to would require a 10-foot landscape strip. It is existing at 5. It's not moving the building one way or another. It's just he wouldn't be able to get
why do we require a variance?
We wanted the site to be brought completely up to code, which would require the 10-foot of landscaping.
But to bring it up to code, he would have to demolish part of a building.
No. He would have to demolish part of the asphalt.
Oh, I see.
And he wouldn't be able to get the car completely around the building in that location.
Oh, I see. He wouldn't have interior circulation.
Right, correct.
So this is to allow less landscaping so he can get interior circulation.
Correct.
Now I understand. I apologize. I just didn't understand what this was about. Does the council have any questions? Councilmember Orleans.
Mr. Rollator, there was some conversation I know at the DRB about the security pipes being behind any landscaping on the front versus out in front on the street on Alpharetta side. And then also, maybe this is more for Brad, I see on your site tree plan, it looks like some shrubbery along Alpharetta Highway. It doesn't go to the corner of Horton and Alpharetta, but I guess, Brad, is that going to be finalized through DRB?
Yes.
And
they'll review the landscaping as well as...
So it could be modified from what's showing on this part of the site plan?
Right.
Because it doesn't go down to the corner at all. And then back to my question about their discussion on security bullards, pipes, whatever you want to call them.
Staff originally brought that up as when we deal with automotive, we like to make sure they're on the site, that they're not driving over the landscaping and things of that nature. With the revised site plan, they're actually showing a double hedgerow material, which I think will be secure enough and the piping will not be necessary.
Not necessary at all.
Right.
But they're showing it, but that's not guaranteed, and
Right.
it's going to be
Reviewed
finalized by DRB.
Finalized by DRB, correct.
And it may be, Mr. Rollator, you can comment about what they're showing here, but it doesn't go down to the corner of Horton, too, from the applicant's perspective on that landscaping.
You want to address that? Sure. Brad Dredd, I'll let him talk.
Brad Riffle with AEC, 50 Warm Springs Circle. What we were just showing right there was basically what came out of the courtesy DRB hearing that we had in terms of eliminating the pipe rail and putting some double row hedge in front of the cars. It wasn't explained that we needed to go beyond the grill of the car. So by all means, we can improve that and take that to the corner and dress that corner up. There are some things in that corner that we have to work with regards to power poles and guy wires and some other utility boxes that we have to work around.
Right, I know, and they're the ones you'll need to work with, but I just my suggestion that maybe you look at it before you go back to them for that corner too. Thank you.
Councilmember Price.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just curious, the prior lot, how many acres was the lot that he's vacating? Okay, so just under what this is, this would be. And on our conditions, are we maximizing a number of cars to be located there? Or is that a reasonable condition? I don't know.
It's reasonable, by no means that maximizing it. A lot of the competing lots just don't have any landscape and they just pile them in there. This has lanes and parking spaces and is regimented and works. For us, it's not a home run. It's enough to get us in there and make it work.
Yeah, I guess maybe you misunderstood me. Are we able to put a maximum number of cars in there by number?
I think the city would have to answer that.
Let me see if I understand this. There are a certain number of parking spaces shown. Could they park more cars on this on a regular basis than the number of parking spaces shown?
Could they? Yes. Would they meet the requirements of the current code for them to be in located, designated line spaces? No.
So would they be in violation if they on a regular basis park in a non-parking place?
Yes.
And they could be cited?
Yes.
So that would be the limitation on parking, is the number of spaces shown?
Correct.
On the site plan.
Okay, and the corollary to that, the tract 1, is that the northern tract? Given that there are storage cars there now, what prevents that being used for storage in the future?
Code enforcement.
Well, what's the difference in having that a vacant lot with storage as compared to now?
The way we're controlling it that it is storage is the current online car dealer that uses that for storage is not allowed to sell from that location. So the wonderful businesses that this is he usually gets turned in by a competitor that he's selling from that lot, and we send code enforcement down there to say, you're supposed to be storing here, you're not selling, take all your signs off.
Well, I guess then my question is, what's preventing the applicant from renting to them on that location?
You identifying that you're not going to allow the used car more than 3/4 of an acre on this approval.
But that doesn't include storage.
Correct.
So again, what prevents?
You conditioning that you won't allow storage of cars there.
And so why can't we do that now?
Roll later, can we get that as a condition? He will not store cars on this lot?
Say that again, please.
Can we get it as a condition on what this northern lot, that he will not be storing cars on there? Can we get that as a condition?
I need to talk to the applicant and make sure.
That would
Let's do
help
that
Councilmember Price.
I understand the question.
Other questions? Council, well, let me go to this side, and then I'll come back. Councilman Ordonez, you've already gotten your first
I want to follow
bite.
up on that, though, that point, if I could.
All right, I will allow it as a follow-up question.
Follow-up question, Judge. Okay, reading about they've got a potential use for that third lot. And then from what I read, they said if it doesn't come through, it's going to be leveled as part of this whole project and will be grassed. Is that a valid statement?
I don't think it'll be grass. You tell me.
If there's no building that goes in there?
No, it's asphalt today.
Stabilized.
It'll be stabilized.
But the asphalt will stay then?
Asphalt would stay.
Okay.
Councilmember Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Rollator, did you get to see the revisions of the 4 conditions? I think you got in.
I don't
So,
think
Brad,
he
could
saw
you put those up for Mr. Rollator, just to make sure that he understands the revisions that we made on those 4? Plus, there's a 5th one, and I think I gave a copy to Mr. Riffle to give to you. Mr. Rollator?
I do. Somewhere in this heap. Yep.
This is what I've changed.
All right. All right, and this is, okay, all right, I understand that. And those are the only 2 changes there. I've now reviewed those 2 changes.
Okay, that's fine. And then I had Mr. Riffle give you a written on the 5th condition on the bond of the landscaping. The owner-developer shall provide a 2-year landscape bond to the City of Roswell in an amount determined by the city arborist to ensure the survival and maintenance of all landscaping shown on the approved plans prior to the CO. Are you comfortable with that?
In general statement, we're in agreement with that as well, assuming that the arborist would make a fair and reasonable determination.
That's between you and the arborist.
Yeah.
Another question that was brought up was on transportation. One of the things that transportation had stated was an interparcel connectivity with tracks 2. Does your applicant have any problems with that being a condition of zoning?
It would depend, let me let you answer that.
If you'll show us what tract 1 is and 2 is, and where that which parcels we're talking about combining, so we can clear here.
Okay, as part of the application and the survey, this is tract 1, this is tract 2, and this is tract 3. The interparcel access was basically talking about what we're having in between here, which is a result of the site plan.
So it shows it on the site.
So it's on there
Correct.
because somebody told me it wasn't. Okay, that's fine. And then I think another thing that was a little stickler, and I put a condition that the conditional use would be 2.75 acres maximum. And that's because that's one of the conditions. They don't want it to go into that vacant. So if you're comfortable with that, it's just a little formality. Make it a maximum of 0.75 acres.
Is that what our acreage is?
And that's more or less what the site plan is.
I understand, but how much is it? Yeah.
Are you comfortable with that one?
I think Ms. Roller said he needed to talk to his client.
Yeah.
About the 0.75 acres? I think it was Councilmember Price, I think it was brought up, and
Mr. Rollator,
Councilmember
yeah, I think the
Deppolito.
point is, we don't want cars parked on this northern lot.
I understand.
Whether they're for storage or for sale, because if they're for storage, they sure look like they're for sale if they're right next to a car lot.
All right, and we had a second
And
question.
you were going to check on that for us.
But there were there not 2 questions there?
What was the second
The
question?
other one was the storage of cars on the northern lot. I think what I'm hearing from Councilmember Price is rental of that space for storage of cars, rental of it, of storing cars on that northern lot.
Well, whether it's
That was
rented
stored right now.
or for his own use, we don't want to, I think the council doesn't want to see more cars parked. They'd like to see that northern lot for something other than parking cars, other than, for sale.
So those are basically 2 interlocking questions.
Yes, sir. You'll need to check on that.
Let me take just a
Let's
finish.
Let's finish up and see what other questions council have. There may be other questions.
And another one was, Councilmember Deppolito brought up about the renovation of the existing building, and I think I heard something from you that was going to be some type of prettying it up a little bit.
Brad will address that.
And if you'll show me on the map which building we're talking about.
Okay, this is Brad Riffle again. This is the existing dry cleaning building
Yes,
right
sir.
here, plus or minus 1,000 square feet. Mr. Ruhi's current business has a 2-service bay area where he services the vehicles that he purchases. This is not a off the street servicing. So he'd like to have that same condition here. What we've determined is that the back of the building is adaptable to putting in a service bay with the doors that will be facing to the side here. But in order to have two, we're going to have to extend the back facade from right here 12 or so feet towards Horton to accommodate the second service bay. So that would be the extension. This box right here.
That's the extension. Well, here's my question. On the front facade, which used to be a dry cleaner, any facade changes on that part of the building?
No, sir. It'll just, the front facade, the remaining facade is going to be just given some nice paint. What he's probably going to do is punch some holes for windows on the side right here so he can see out onto the lot.
Minor changes to the existing
Yes, sir.
structure and then addition to the rear. That addition to the rear, I assume, would have to go before DRB?
That's correct.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Diamond?
On the interconnectivity issue, I don't see anything between 2 and 3. Is there a rear access onto Horton on 3?
That is correct. Currently there's a curb cut right here that will probably have to be relocated based on where they place the parking. But this is the existing curb cut right there for track 3 on Horton.
Okay.
Right there.
Thank you.
Councilmember DiPolito?
Thank you. Also on the lot that's to remain vacant, how are we handling stormwater for that? Is that controlled by the underground storage?
No, that will not be. The underground storage that we show right here is a underground system with permeable pavers that will just be for the 3/4 acres. This site right here, there's a drainage basin right here that most of the water gets to right now. What we intend to do is saw cut the asphalt back enough to where we can grade a swale and place another structure right here so that it captures the sheet flow that comes off the pavement and then goes directly into that structure. Whenever the next development comes along, they will be obligated to provide the stormwater management.
Well, since this is all part of the same development, aren't we required to meet the detention and stormwater requirements on this site as well at this time?
That needs to go, Mr. Townsend.
That needs to go to your city attorney.
Well, I think if they're going to be working on this as one project with tearing down the other building, then yeah, they'll have to meet stormwater for any kind of land disturbance they're doing, so.
So we'll need to, so this plan showing the detention here is not really accurate. We'll need to provide additional detention on the vacant parcel as well and water quality.
I think a lot of it's going to depend on when they tear it down, what's there. So if they do tear down the building and it's grassed and stuff, I don't know, not an engineer, so might want to get Stu up here to discuss how that would work, but.
Well, is it fair to say before they get their final approval, they'll have to deal with, Alice is nodding her head, they'll have to deal with stormwater on both parcels as part of this whole project? That at this stage, the stormwater doesn't have to be complete in the plan. But before they move forward with CO, they're going to have it all dealt with. I'm getting a yes from Alice Wakefield.
They're able to CO the 3/4 of an acre to get the used car use. The remaining parcel, whenever it wants to develop, is going to have to deal with its detention and water quality at that time. They could remove the building, remove any little asphalt to make sure the sheet flow stops and not trigger a water requirement dealing with stormwater because they're not increasing any impervious on the property.
So there's not enough land disturbance on that parcel to require detention and water quality?
Probably be under 1,000 square feet, right? Okay. I mean, if they're removing the building and leaving the foundation, it's still, they're actually, carving out and putting in new landscaping, but planter islands and things of that nature, that they're going to trigger the water detention requirements.
It's fair to say all these will be dealt with in the normal course.
For the development of that property, correct.
Councilmember DiPolito, you may proceed.
Thank you. Just a follow-up question to the building itself is not one of the most attractive buildings on the street. And I would think the applicant would want to do something to improve it. Is it just receiving a coat of paint? That's truly all that's happening to it from the existing building?
If we go further than that and we make architectural improvements, then we encounter a whole approval process that we're not presently involved in. And we have a school system who is ejecting the applicant in late May. So Mr. Riffle's approach and my approach to this has been, do not rock the boat. We will certainly take the one remaining structure we have and make it more appealing, because we will paint it in pleasant colors and put some windows in it. Beyond that, we're wading into a pit that we don't know how deep it is. So, and our present intention is not do any architectural changes to the front or the side exterior of the building. It will be in the rear where a 12-foot bay will be added to prep his vehicles for sale.
I guess I don't understand that, because you have to get approvals to do the addition on the rear, so it's still the same process.
I suppose it's a matter of cost and what the client feels is appropriate for him. He seems to think that the building is attractive enough and just wants to freshen it up with some nice paint and then put the windows in on the side and just proceed in that manner.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions to my left? I haven't called upon Councilmember Diamond yet before I return to my right.
On the landscaping that goes across the front, the property that's being demolished, there'd be no landscaping in front of that?
Are we talking about track 3?
Yes.
Okay. Currently, there's a little bit right now. I think the city may have planted a few small crepe myrtles, because there are a few that exist in front of our property. But that's about all there is right there. There's some grass beyond the sidewalk, but it's just primarily a couple of crepe myrtles.
So
but there was no
landscaping-
intention to extend our beautification on that other tract.
So it's not going to look like anything connected to each other. It's going to be totally separate soon after it's purchased?
Possibly, just given the look that we're going to be presenting on our frontage as opposed to their frontage.
Thank you.
Councilmember Price.
I'm curious about the maximum allowable lot coverage, which is 25%, and I'm just curious, are all 3 tracks being used in computing that or not?
No, the 7% that is shown for lot coverage is just applying to the 3/4 acre.
And when you say lot coverage, that's just buildings?
That's just the building footprint.
Okay, so when we're talking about impervious surface, however, if I were to take track 1 and 2 and color in what's not pervious, or I'm sorry, what is pervious, it's just hard for me to see that makes 25%.
No, it's 74%.
Well, I know, I see that. I'm just saying my eyeball doesn't.
The difference in the two. Okay.
Yeah, my eyeball doesn't bring that up to 74%. Because
Townsend, have you calculated, you talking about lot coverage?
well, no, I'm talking about
Impervious.
total
Impervious coverage.
Have y'all checked the numbers on this, Mr.
Yes,
Townsend?
they're accurate.
So, I mean, could somebody just with a crayon show me what track 1 is what's pervious? Or does the variance in
You'd like to know what is not pavement.
Green.
What's paved? Okay.
what's not paved or building?
What the water will seep through.
Brad's got it drawn.
Oh, yes.
Squiggled blue line is green.
That's 24%
So
of.
that is including
that area.
some of track 3 in the calculation?
To get to the 3/4 of an acre, they have to put a new property
Oh,
line
it's going to be a new line, okay.
right there. And there's a 5-foot landscape strip adjacent to it, 10 feet in the front, 10 feet here, the variance for 5 feet over here, dumpster located here, this landscaping 10 feet here, planter island there, and I think an inlet for the water to go down to the detention, probably in that location. Oh, okay. Okay?
If you're convinced that's 75%, I'm happy.
No, it's 24%.
I mean, 75% of the other, or 74% of the other.
Other questions? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you. Along those same lines, I was looking at the landscape plan, and I guess the landscape strip we were just talking about on the northern edge of the property there is showing a few trees, 3 shade trees, but there's no hedges whatsoever. That's just going to be grass and 3 trees, so nothing to screen the cars.
Currently, that's correct.
Okay, and that would also be the case with the south property line. There's just a few trees and some grass, also no hedges to screen the service area, so you'd essentially be driving down the street and looking at the backside of a service area?
We're talking about right here?
Yeah.
Currently, there is some landscaping. There's some junipers along there that are existing, and then these are some existing trees. They range in 7 to 9 inch caliper that we're saving along that strip.
Okay, I'm looking at a picture of those junipers. They look like they might be 6 inches. Actually, that might be pine straw. So I guess the answer to the question is really no landscape screening on the sides of the site.
We do intend to embellish this landscaping on that side over there, just given the visibility from that corner. So we will be beefing up the landscaping in this corner and then along that side for our DRB submittal.
Okay, but you didn't want to submit that. Well, what are you planning on increasing the landscaping to?
We haven't gotten there yet. I need to get with the client and see what he sees in his vision.
But that is your intention, to beef up the landscaping there to screen that side of the building?
Well, it won't be screening the building. Because there's a slope. The pavement that's up here is probably 3 or 4 or so feet above road grade.
Right.
So it's on a slope.
Right, well, it looks like you have room to put some shrubs or, some sort of screening along the edge of the pavement there. So, I like your idea, and I would encourage that. I don't know, could that be an additional condition that we add some additional landscaping?
As approved by DRB.
As approved by DRB. Thank you.
Other questions? Does the council have any other questions? This time we'll hear from the public.
You want me to be getting your answer in the meantime?
Yes, sir, please.
Thank you.
I'm Sue Dupart, 500 Shadowwood Court. My concern, as Mr. Rollier talks about the long-term plan, if we remove the posterior curb cut from the undeveloped property, what are we doing for the future to invite commercial development? Because I could see a Starbucks going there. You got teachers, mothers dropping off kids at elementary school. If you don't have an exit onto a feeder road, you're compromising the integrity of the ethics of the city in promoting developable land.
Which exit are you talking about?
The undeveloped property, they're eliminating a curb cut on
No,
the circle?
as I understand it, they're not eliminating, there will still be a curb cut on Highway 9 and a curb cut on Horton.
Okay. And the 18-wheeler pulling the cars is going to go down Horton?
They don't deliver it. I'll let them answer, but my understanding is they don't, the cars are delivered individually one by one, not by 18-wheelers.
Okay. So would that be a stipulation in case he retires and someone else sends a car there, that they would be the same? Because I can tell you on Mansell Circle, the 18-wheeler delivers cars. That's you, and you know the stucco building, that they store the cars for Cars Online. So we see our regular residential roads used as car traffic transportation. And as Dr. Price knows, they will be using, the school parents will be driving, you know, that area. We're going to have a lot of interesting traffic, you know, in September, a year from now. But just, that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask her a question real quick?
Yes, Mr. Parker.
I'm assuming you're talking about a car delivery truck parking on either Horton or Alpharetta to deliver
Exactly,
the cars.
to unload cars. That if we did a stipulation that in the future, in case somebody else takes over the business.
But you're talking about parking on a public right-of-way to be able to deliver the cars. That's what you're talking about.
Well, the size of the property, and if they're not delivering those cars now, why do we want to increase the burden of retail business on that limited access when we already see?
Okay, I'm just trying to get it straight. You're trying to say, because I know that there's car deliveries that they actually park in the median or the turn lanes of Alpharetta Street or Holcomb Bridge or wherever to deliver the cars. Are you saying that, or are you saying no car delivery trucks at all, even if they come on the property to deliver the cars?
Well, since his stipulation is he's not going to have an 18-wheeler delivering cars.
Yet. I have to ask him that.
If that's what the plan condition is, and we wrote a long-term planning to prevent a different type of unloading cars, we wouldn't have, you know, future traffic problems like we do on Mansell Circle, where the 18-wheeler parks and unloads for Cars Online in that office professional building.
Okay. I'll check with Mr. Rowe later on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Mr. Rollator, it's back to you.
Let me answer the public comment first. At no time do we use auto carriers to deliver automobiles to our premises. It's no more than one or two on a flatbed or similar item. So we don't have an issue with restricting auto carriers, if that's somebody's concern. We don't use them. We buy locally, we buy one or two vehicles at a time. It's the way we work.
Just a question for staff. Are there any rules and regulations without, I hate putting additional conditions if there's already something to control people parking in the road. Is there something already to prohibit people parking in the road?
The parking requirements usually are on residential streets, I think for like 24-hour types of numbers. If there is an auto delivery carrier delivering, it's a code enforcement, law enforcement scenario that's usually they're gone by the time the call's made and they're trying to get out there to enforce something.
Thank you. Please proceed, Mr. Rollator.
Phase two. The questions regarding the use of the uppermost piece of the property. It's Mr. Ruhi's intention when he filed this zoning application to have the entire property zoned for the use. However, he understands the concern with this piece of property, and what he would propose is, in its present confirmation, that cars neither be stored for anyone else there or for him at this point in time, and that should he present to the city a plan in the future for expansion, then his expansion will be subject to the city's approval in order to do that. The zoning application was for the entire tract, if I understand it correctly.
Councilmember Nguyen.
Mr. Rollator, I'm assuming that there's no storage of cars, rental, like they were talking about, just not on the vacant property, but all of the property.
Well,
I mean, he's going to store his cars, I understand.
Yeah,
but
he's
I'm
not taking
talking about
anybody else's.
other than his cars.
That's right. We don't want anybody else's.
And then on the vacant piece of property, there would be no storage of cars at all.
That's right, until he came back to you with a plan that showed an expansion of his business.
Do we need to put that as a condition, Brad?
Yes.
Okay, if somebody can help me out with that one, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
What
you.
about the the maximum 0.75 acres for the
I think
used
in
car
a
lot.
way I just answered that.
That was his same answer.
It was the
That's the
same
same
answer, so you
answer.
have no problems with that?
Only with the understanding that we wish to zone the entire property for conditional use. However, for the present time, we will restrict any storage or display or otherwise putting of cars on this upper tract until such time as we present a plan for that and it's approved by the city, so that effectively today it stays vacant. If his marketing plans for that property fall through and he's unable to develop it for another use, then he would like the opportunity to come back and say, I need to do something there. Here is my plan. Here are my planters. Here are my striping. Here are my different things, if you should approve it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Townsend, when we changed number 4 to final plat is required prior to CO, that will help with the 0.75 acres maximum?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Does any questions for Mr. Rolletter, Councilmember DiPolito?
This is actually a question for Mr. Davidson, but Mr. Roller may want to stay up there. With the condition as he presented it, does that infer that the council, that we're obligating a future council to approve a plan should he bring it forward?
Well, you would be approving the use of it with the condition that he brings back a plan that's acceptable to you. So the used car lot would be basically allowed, but they would have to bring a plan back to you that's acceptable, is what I'm
Mr.
getting.
Rolletter, could we clean that up so that we're just doing this 1 and 2 and not making a decision for use on 3? I mean, I know you're doing this, but you're complicating things.
My understanding with the client is that the client wants to zone the entire property for the intended use. That's just for his automobile dealership, that he is willing to restrict the development or the use of that tract unless and until such time as he presents a plan to the city, which is approved by the city for that expansion.
You sure you want to do that?
Sorry?
Are you sure you want to do that?
I'm sure he does.
Mrs. Wynn?
Okay, this is my concern, Mr. Rollator, is that the site plan that we have in front of us, is for parcel tract 1 and tract 2, as, you know, that's what your applicant was going to use for the used car lot. And I think that's where council members DiPolito and Price had some concerns, because we wanted to make sure that the maximum that he could do was 0.75 acres. Now, what I'm hearing from you now is that the conditional use is for all 3 tracts, but he's not going to use all 3 unless he comes back to the city. I think we're digging a hole somewhere if we look at it that way. Really, because I'm looking at the site plan, and how the site plan looks is for 0.75 acres for the used car lot. And what I read in, I think it was letter of intent right here, it says, let's see, they will market the remaining 0.52 acres for sale to a commercial use for future development. Well, if we put it as a condition of zoning for this used car lot, then this statement is not correct, because they don't have to sell it to him because he already owns it. I'm just having a difficult time with that.
I understand your concern.
So
Go
if there's
back
some
and
other
talk to your
type of
client.
language that we can have,
That'd be a good
would-
idea.
I think it'd be a good idea to talk to your client. Let's wait till we get back here.
Mr. Rui would like to address you personally. I'll let him do that.
Yes, sir. Come forward, please.
Hello, my name is Ramin Ruhi, 1197 Alpharetta Street, Roswell, Georgia. The only reason we have this confusion is because of the situation that I am in with eminent domain. This piece of property, the 3 parcel, financially is a big burden on me. So what I'm trying to do is to be able to market the ½ acre, and if I cannot sell it in the near future, combine it with the car lot. At this point, financially, the money that they gave me for my piece of property is not enough to do the whole 3 parcel. So I was asking for the opportunity to have the chance to be able to add this in the near future if I cannot get a qualified business to go in that ½ acre.
Mr. Ruhi, this council is not saying you do not have the chance, but they're saying they're not pre-approving it. They're saying you would have to come back and go through the process again to get the northern parcel approved also for a car lot. So they're not removing that possibility. They're simply saying you've got to come back.
But Mayor, with all respect, since it's only ½ acre, if I come back in the future, they're going to tell me it's small, you cannot add it to your existing. That's the only thing.
Let's address that question to Mr. Townsend. Mr. Townsend, if he came back and said, all right, I want to add the northern parcel to the 2 southern parcels, would he meet the minimum lot size?
If he adds them together and gets over...
And combine them.
Combines them with unity of title, with a combination plat, and combines them as one business entity, yes. He can't separate it.
You couldn't
and
have 2
different-
car lots.
He cannot have 2 car lots,
You would have
correct.
to have one bigger car lot, but you
Correct.
could come back.
As long as the city would guarantee that opportunity, I have no problem.
The opportunity is guaranteed.
Okay.
The approval is not. But let me make sure Mr. Rollator finishes up before I come back to questions. I think he has something to say.
I think, upon my discussion with Mr. Ruhi and his left ear then, that he will be satisfied if the 3/4 acres is appropriately approved at this point in time.
Wanted to add something, because I was wrong. Mr. Davidson?
I believe if he came back under the UDC, he would not be able to expand a non-conforming use, right?
Correct.
So you need to be aware.
So the answer is, I'm sorry, I was wrong. You couldn't come back.
If effective June 1st, the Unified Development Code, this use could not be asked for.
You would have to go through a rezoning, and that would be difficult. So,
Correct.
So I apologize.
No, I
I
understand.
was assuming the law would carry forward, but because the law is changing, that opportunity is no longer there. So if you don't get it tonight, it's a much tougher hurdle. So, Mr. Rollator, you want to go back and talk to your client? Because
Absolutely.
I missed the ball on that one. What about a deferral? I won't suggest it. He needs to either rezone this whole thing or not. Because this mixed thing is.
Mr. Michael.
Mr. Ruhi would like the entire 1.25 acre zone for the proposed use.
Mr. Rollator, let me make a suggestion. This is a big twist on the site plan.
I'm wide open.
Perhaps I know no one likes to do this, but if we're going to do the entire parcel, we need to look at a site plan for the entire parcel. And I think a request for deferral would be in line given the change in the approach here.
Do we have a proposed date for that?
We can work with you, I expect.
60 days?
Or quicker?
Well, the next community development meeting is April 14. It's the next community development, right?
Here, I have a question for clarifying some of this.
Yes.
In going back to what was presented earlier, I mean, if this whole tract, if it's zoned according to the use now, and in the condition, he does say that no cars are stored or for sale on that upper piece of property at the current time, then Mr. Davison, doesn't he have the right to have his lot even after the UDC? And it's a matter of coming back and adjusting the site plan to expand the parking, which would allow the storage of cars into that third parcel? Wouldn't we accomplish what both sides are trying to say that we defer to try to accomplish?
Well, one of the conditions is that it's going to be a separate tract of land before he gets a CO for this property.
This council can vote that
So
way. I'm not
you
sure
can-
there's a majority
You
vote
could
that
vote
way.
to allow the use for the whole thing, as long as it's combined with this property.
This is my suggestion. There has been a lot of consideration of this, a lot of study. It seems to be changing I think it's appropriate to consider this change, but I think it's a big enough change, it would be helpful for all parties to go back and look at it. Councilmember Price.
What would be the earliest we could have a next meeting?
April 14th.
We make one last run.
I think my first question you answered in that the new property line would be recorded prior to any CO?
Prior to a CO.
Okay.
Is what the condition reads right now.
And then my other is just a comment for thought for the applicant that, I think it was dicey that this was going to get approved tonight as we see it. And I'm just thinking that, a more aggressive request, my sense right now is that there would not be much support for that, but I could be wrong.
Staff will be evaluating their assessment of the property too, if it goes all
And I guess,
conditional use.
thank you. I guess one of your comments earlier was that, he's being displaced. There was a net zero of used car lots on the street, which I think everybody was willing to consider was a fair result from the school being built there, which was a slight increase, 0.7 to 0.75, but I think a huge whole-scale increase in the used car lot footage on that street. I think that's a real tough pill to swallow. So you all can do whatever you want, but I think your best shot's tonight.
Well, that doesn't mean he may not reconsider what he brings back, but there's a lot of changes here. I think it's appropriate to have a further discussion with your clients and also with staff. I'm recommending deferral. Councilmember Diamond.
I guess I would encourage the same thing. I agree with Dr. Price, and having been one of the people that was contacted by the school board on this property, I am always very careful not to speak for my counterparts, but I was very clear that I had no interest in seeing us add to the car lot situation. And my understanding was the final resolution with the school board was there is no promise that you'll get relocated. There is no opportunity, and to the point where they were willing to walk away from that lot and not make it part of the school deal if that was one of the hang-ups. And my understanding was in the closing of it, that was not part of the deal. And this has nothing to do with our appreciation for Mr. Ruhi as a business owner or how he runs his business. It's not a reflection on him, but the visual message that this conveys that we have as a council over the years been very specific about how we wanted this to redevelop, and the message that this sends for positive redevelopment in the core area of our city, I agree with Betty. I think it's pushing it where it is, and coming back with more is going to be a very difficult thing.
Councilmember Wynn.
Yeah, I'm having a little bit of trouble now because, I thought it was like tit for tat. I would suggest that you take a deferral and sit down there and see if there's something that can be worked out. If you're amenable to that, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, I can make that motion now.
Let's ask Mr. Rowland if he wishes for deferral.
Yeah, I got a brief head nod first on that.
Sure.
Sure.
Vote it down. Vote this sucker down.
Are you requesting a deferral?
I request a deferral till April 14th, Mayor.
Do we have a motion for deferral?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I make a motion that we defer, hold on just a minute. Case number CU 214000051 and CV 214000070 located at 10469, 10471, and 10473 Alpharetta Street to our next community development council meeting, which would be April 14.
Motion to defer by Councilmember Wynn. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Price. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Mr. Rollator, just for a comment, if we look at lots that are too shallow and too small to be assembled, and we took your wisdom, Canton Street would never develop.
Got some beautiful old buildings on it, I agree with you. Thank you.
We're going to take a 5-minute break. If the council will come forward, we'll call this meeting back to order. Councilmember Diamond asked that we call her short agenda next so the rec people can go back and enjoy the pretty weather tomorrow. So Councilmember Diamond, Councilmember Price, if you'll read the rec council calendar.
Yes, let's start with number 9. Approval to place the boulder monuments along the river as part of the Cherokee Monument Project. We have some guests that, Mr. Glover, is it all right? We'll just let them start to present the project, as has already gone through the Rec Commission. And
for a brief presentation.
Brief presentation.
Very brief.
Mr. Mayor and Council, my name is Cindy Crane. I reside at 220 Independence Way, Roswell, 30075.
Johanna Harned, President, Roswell Historical Society, 310 River Glen Drive, 30075.
I am Judy Meir, past president of the Roswell Historical Society, 10850 Shagbark Trail, Roswell, 30075.
Are you seeing our slides? No, I don't think so. Okay, so we can go without them. I've got hard copies as well. But the goal of this project for the memorial is to honor the Cherokee, to educate, and to also bring additional resources to Roswell from a, sorry.
Up on the screen.
Oh, there it is, okay. So we're honoring and educating, but we're also promoting Roswell as a city that includes the Cherokee and the prior Indians as part of the history.
We got to this place as the Roswell Historical Society as a 501c3 with a mission to preserve, protect, and share our history. Decided that this was a good project for us to get behind. We will administer donations for the project as fundraising will be handled by Cindy Crane. We are estimating a cost of $10,000 to $15,000 to be raised through private funds, and the variation depends upon the tonnage of the boulders that we select. The process as we've moved through has been to work with Mr. Glover and Mr. Pruitt at Recreation and Parks. The Parks and Rec Commission approved and brought this proposal to Mayor and Council, and we appreciate that. The 27th of February was the approval from Parks and Rec. We have readjusted the verbiage on the 8 boulders and sent them to Jeff Bishop, who is the president of the Trail of Tears Association. He vetted them through the Cherokee Nation, the Trail of Tears Association, and the National Park Service.
Has Roswell Rec reviewed the text and approved it?
Yes.
Thank you.
In addition, we plan to have the boulders ordered by May 10th in order to have the boulders in place and the plaques in place with the stories by July 1 of 2014. And the plaque will look something like this, 3/8 inch type, raised type, New Times Roman, and this is an approximate size that most of the plaques on the boulders will be, varying by degree by the length of the stories.
Once the boulders are put in place, our hope is to have a Cherokee festival. I have relationships with the Cherokee chief in Oklahoma and also in North Carolina, as well as the National Trail of Tears Association, based on my work as an author about Cherokee past history. So we're hoping to have a big unveiling ceremony and to have them come sometime this summer. And it's fitting because in March, 175 years ago, this month, was the end of the Trail of Tears. So in July is when the Cherokee Act of Union occurred, which brought the Cherokee Western Band and Eastern Band back together. So that's a very positive event for them, and we thought it would be a perfect time to have a festival to honor them and kind of unveil it to the city and to the Cherokee as well.
These are the topics of the boulders. We prefer to keep the stories to ourselves. We do have hard copy of them if you would like to have them for your perusal, but we believe that it is the stories that will be part of the draw to the memorial. So these are the titles, and you can see that we start with honoring those who came before, and the last one is a recognition that it was not only the Cherokee that were here and occupied land along the Cherokee, but the Creek and other native peoples going back to 4,000 to 8,000 BC.
So in summary, if you have any questions, please let us know. But just to reiterate, we are not requesting any funds from the city. We do have people that are waiting, willing, and able to provide the funds. And we need to do it fairly quickly if we're going to try to meet that goal of having a ceremony this summer. So our plan is to get those funds by May 1st. And again, to honor and educate and then promote the City of Roswell. Any questions?
So you're requesting this council approve the concept?
The concept in that we can place the boulders.
And I understand a memorandum of understanding is to follow? Joe? Yes. Just want to confirm something. In the remote possibility that it's required to remove a boulder, do we have the permission not to remove the boulders from the trail, but to relocate the boulders in the same vicinity? I don't want to get into a... Can we include that in the memorandum of understanding? At the city's cost, if we had to, say, run a utility or for some unforeseen reason do something with the park, we can move these boulders.
Once the boulders are purchased and placed, they belong to the City of Roswell, so we have the right to move them if we need to. We'll be responsible for the maintenance of those boulders, so yes, we can, but we will put that in the memorandum of understanding.
Yeah, that I don't want to have an argument about the actual specific location. These are arbitrary locations, and if park plans change, we can adjust the location.
That's correct.
Other questions that council may have? Yep. Any other questions? Councilmember DePolito.
First of all, I just want to say I think this is a great idea, and it's a wonderful way to promote a part of our history that I think very few of our residents know anything about, and I think it's a wonderful idea. Have you approached the Fulton County schools and talked to them about what you're doing and explain the whole process to them?
Thank you for saying that. I actually wrote that down after the last Roswell Historical Society meeting because that would be a great idea. I have not done that yet, waiting on approval, but that's a fabulous idea.
Well, I know that the school system does study the Trail of Tears. I had two daughters that recently did that, so it's part of their curriculum, so I think they'd enjoy hearing from you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Yes. I think it's fitting in the month of March and with the anticipation in the month of July, two important dates in the Cherokee that I'm honored to make the motion to approve this project of installing the monuments, boulder monuments with plaques along the Chattahoochee River as part of the Cherokee Monument Project with an MOU between the Roswell Historical Society and the city to follow.
Motion by Councilmember Price for approval. Is there a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Orleans. Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Council, I encourage you to make your contributions.
Thank you very much. You can visit the Historical Society website to do that.
Thank you. Councilmember Diamond, no, Price, if there's one more item to let our...
I'll continue then since Mr. Glover's still on his feet. And that is item number 10, approval for the mayor and or city administrator to sign a contract with Chattahoochee Outfitters, LLC to provide recreational concession services at Don White and Azalea Parks.
Thank you, Mr. Price. We had a bid a few months back, and we only had one bidder that actually submitted a bid for this project. Chattahoochee Outfitters has been our contractor for the last 5 or 6 years. They've done a real good job. We're going to expand their contract this year to include bicycle rental. They're going to move down to the Ace Sand Company property also. They use it now for raft and tube rentals out of that facility, and they're also going to do the bicycle. They also have concessions at the Azalea Park building and concessions. They will have concessions at Don White Park. The concessions at Riverside are still operated by the department. So we ask for approval of this contract.
Does the council have any questions? Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve the city administrator or mayor to sign a contract with Chattahoochee Outfitters.
Motion by Councilmember Price for approval. Is there a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Orleans. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion? Yes. Come forward, please.
I'm Phil Lunny, 9460 Hillside Drive, Roswell. Does this include food trucks like they had to, is there, at that volleyball location, is that part of this?
No, sir. That's separate.
That's separate?
Yes, sir.
So that, and where is there a concession at Don White Park?
It will be at that building.
If y'all would put this question on the record, if you'd speak into the microphone, I'd like the questions, comments on the record.
The question was, where would the services be at Don White Park? I just, it doesn't, that's all.
Last date updated in the fall of 2011, and we have now, since it's a living, breathing document, we like to keep it current and fresh, especially in light of the recently passed Unified Development Code. So the key elements that we're making here is bringing our road network under the Unified Classification of Roads, functional classification of roads, and then updating things like census, if projects have been completed, the connectivity map, and then some other administrative changes in just keeping the document current and fresh. We've talked about this at work sessions and committee meetings, and I met with several council members individually to go through their collective concerns, and I think we've addressed all the concerns, and we are here to address any further concerns that you may have.
Does the council have any questions for Mr. Asenbrock? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Diamond for approval. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Price. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Councilmember Price, I apologize.
Thank you. We worked long and hard on this during the last year, and as you can see, it was deferred a number of times so we could get it just right, which we did, and I appreciate your indulgence for my obsessiveness for details, but I think we've got an excellent document, and I'm very thrilled to have it passed this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Price.
Thank Councilmember Price in her former life as liaison of the Transportation Department and staff for getting all of this done, and for Councilmember Price to say you got it just right is a high compliment.
It is. We are grateful for those words. Thank you very much. Mr. Chris Chauvin was largely responsible for this effort, so Chris, thank you very much. Thank you.
Next item, please.
Yes, sir. The next item is approval of a resolution to accept the 2014 Local Maintenance and Improvement Grant, otherwise known as LIMIG, funds from the Georgia Department of Transportation in the amount of $626,995.26 and approval of a budget amendment BA 220-42200-02-1014 to establish the grant account.
Thank you, Councilmember Diamond. LIMIG, Local Maintenance and Improvement Grant, a GDOT policy that includes population and centerline miles. We apply for this every year. It is based on how much money is in the state budget. It is not based on the condition of the roads. We go out there and we usually program to improve our collector streets primarily, They get the most traffic, they get the most wear. We always overestimate how much we're going to need. In this particular case, we have 3 roads: Mountain Park, Old Roswell, and Old Alabama. And the 3 old roads, we joke about that internally. And we are in need of this money to remain, keep those roads in the condition that we like to have them, which is in an condition index between 70 and 75.
Any questions? Councilmember Nguyen.
Mr. Eisenbratt.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that we're going to do some other road improvements to Old Alabama Connector.
Correct.
Okay, how is this going to fit into the repaving schedule and those improvements that you are looking at doing?
I am pretty confident that the Old Alabama Connector project will be long completed before this paving is underway. So we will be in great shape.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Do we have a motion? Councilmember, is that a question? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Eisenbracht, you mentioned that this is not based on the condition of the roads, but is it based on the condition of the roads that qualify?
Right. They have to be in poor condition in order to qualify. So we submit our list and they come out and basically check to make sure that we're being honest with the program. And then they basically, what I'm telling you though is that if we got 4 miles of road, we would submit for 6. And then, just make that go as far as we could. So all of these roads in total will probably exceed the budget, and then that's where we dial in the length, the scope, the amount of deep patching, or we take some of our city money and apply it to that in order to get the whole thing done. But basically, we make their money go as far as we can.
And these 3 roads are probably in the worst condition of the roads that would qualify for LIMIG funds?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. Just make sure you don't do Old Roswell Road during rush hour or carpool hour.
Right. No, all the work is done for 9 o'clock in the morning and is ended by 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Great. Thank you.
Other questions? Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you for including Old Mountain Park Road.
Yes, sir.
It's on my regular bicycle route. I like to, on a bicycle, you feel every bump in the road. And there's no better way to know which roads need repair than to ride a bicycle down.
Yes, sir. That's very true.
And I can assure the council, Old Mountain Park is in need of repair.
Sir, I don't think we had a motion on that.
We didn't have a motion?
No, we started to, and then we had a question. So
All right,
I would
let's
like
have
to
a
move
motion.
to
Do we have a
approve.
motion?
Move
Do
to
we have a
approve.
motion? Motion by Councilmember Diamond, second by Councilmember Nguyen. All in favor, raise your hands. Passes unanimously.
There we go.
All right.
Thank you.
We're back on track.
Thank you.
You ready? Okay. The next item is approval for mayor and/or city administrator to sign a memorandum of understanding with Fulton County for the Holcomb Bridge Road westbound improvements project and approval of a budget amendment 312-42101-031014 to accept reimbursement funds and establish a revenue budget. Mr. Asim.
Thank you, Councilmember Diamond. We have a bond project which to improve Holcomb Bridge Road east of Georgia 400. The eastbound lanes have 3 lanes and the westbound lanes have 2 lanes. So we're going to match the cross section across that area, basically in the area of Kimberly-Clark. In order to do that, here's a graphic for your review. So this is Georgia 400, this is Holcomb Bridge Road, this is Old Alabama Road. So right in the neighborhood of Kimberly-Clark is a water vault that belongs to Fulton County. And we have discussed this project with them. They realize that the water vault needs to be moved as a result of this project. They have already designed the project. They've already taken to their Board of Commissioners for their approval on their end. And the way the document reads is that their design that they've done will be included in our bid documents that go out when we make this road improvement. And then when the contractor bids on the entire scope of work and he performs that particular item, we will pay him and then submit the invoice to Fulton County, and they will reimburse us for the cost of this work. So it's essentially cost neutral to the City of Roswell to make this important utility relocation to make the project successful.
Thank you for bringing us a cost-neutral project.
Yes, sir.
That's rare for transportation. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Nguyen. Is there Diamond? Is there a second?
We look alike.
I just heard the voice. Second by Councilmember Eichelhardt. Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes. Councilmember Orleans passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item is approval of the residential traffic control enhancement policy. This is going to be great. Mr. Asenbrecht.
Thank you, Councilmember Diamond. So we have a traffic calming program, and some of the homeowners associations that we deal with have asked for a accelerated, streamlined process where they can address some of their perceived speeding and pedestrian bicycle safety areas themselves. Basically, they want some control over what they can do. And so we began to talk with them, and we came up with a concept of creating a policy which is a companion to our traffic calming policy. But basically, there are 3 elements that we found that work really well in the field. One of them is the pedestrian warning assembly, which lives in the middle of the street, which lets people know that there's a crosswalk, and we've modified those for golf carts in some cases. We also have the radar speed feedback sign, which will notify approaching motorists of what their speed is in relation to what the speed limit is, and there's also embedded in that some pretty neat chips that will actually do traffic counts and collect data for us. And then finally, we have the RRFB, the Rectangular Rapid Flashing Beacon, which we used up at Chattahoochee High School. And when we put a solar array on that, we avoid having to connect to a Georgia power pole with a bunch of wires, digging wires underground, because there's a radio beacon in between them that talks to each other. So these things can live largely independently and are extremely effective at driver compliance. When a pedestrian pushes for a crosswalk, it flashes with these very bright LED lights and notifies the motorist that a pedestrian is about to enter the crosswalk. So these 3 items would be on the menu for a homeowners association to buy themselves. So they would not need a petition. There would be no city funds involved. The city's interest, of course, is to help work with the homeowners associations to give them those options. Also, these 3 particular devices would live in our public right-of-way. So it's appropriate for the city to provide guidance to the homeowners association. They would deal with a qualified contractor. We would identify the sites where they'd be. We'd give them a license to operate these things, and then we would share data and make sure that they understand what their qualifications are. Largely, these would be owned by the homeowners association and live in our public right-of-way, where we would grant them the license to, as an encroachment permit.
Just a confirmation, the specific, although this would not come to council, it would require Transportation Department approval.
Yes, sir, it would.
So you would approve the sites and the measures?
Yes, sir. I mean, we would go through basically the same process that we do now with the homeowners association. What is your problem? We would do the data decision about what they are, decide if these are appropriate, if they are, where they would locate. For instance, the assemblies, they live in harm's way, and they are frequently hit. And what we would do is probably provide them with a first, like a mock-up for them to understand. We have gone back and forth on these. This one that I'm showing you here is the standard one in the manual for uniform traffic control devices. What we would do is tailor it to the individual homeowners association so they couldn't be stolen, for instance, and relocated. They would be, well, we've heard of that happening across the country. So they will be tailored to the individual area, so we'll know if somebody's reutilizing them improperly. But then if they are hit, it's up to the homeowners association to manufacture new ones and build them, but it would be up to us to make sure that they were cited correctly.
Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Easterbrook, they work well. Mr. Easterbrook was nice enough to have Willow Springs as one of his test sites, and those work very well. We're the golf cart path, and if we just can get people from blasting through stop signs and going around stop school buses, we'd be golden right now. But I just want to let you know that they do work.
Thank you.
And ours is designed for Willow Springs. I think it says Willow Springs on them, so they work very, very well, and everybody's really happy with them. So that was a great idea that you came up with on this one, and thank you for using us as your prototype because it does work very well.
Well, I'd like to pass that along to Mohammed Rauf, our city traffic engineer, who was
Mohammed.
largely responsible for, taking the national standard and adopting it to that type of situation. I think it was very clever and creative, and I agree. I mean, we did the national research, and they are very effective.
Councilmember Diamond.
Steve, I know the folks in the back are going to do great articles on this, but in the future, how would people know about this?
We are going to, thank you. Actually, that's a very good point. We are going to publish this. We're going to work with community relations, and we're going to put out a list of frequently asked questions that come to us because we go to these homeowners associations, and it seems like we start at the same place every time. And we answer, there's every subdivision and homeowners association sort of has a unique personality, but they all sort of zero in on the same elements. And so we're going to use the frequently asked questions to let them sort of do their research and their homework so that when they come to us, they already kind of have an idea of what they're looking for. I also expect that we will be coming back to the council with other recommendations. I think this is going to be very popular, and I think there's going to be opportunities for us to expand this program, and I'm not sure how that's going to work, but I think if we get these into the system and we work through a couple iterations, we will find well received by the public, and probably will perhaps be some more tools in the future that we can add to this program.
Councilmember Orleans.
Steve, Mohammed, I want to thank you guys for putting this program together because, as you said, over the years I've had many different conversations about this and it always comes back to the same things. So it's kind of getting these items together and ideas out there for them to look at. And going back to Willow Springs, when you and I talked originally about putting these yellow ones in for the golf cart pass.
Right.
And Frank Casey jumped on that when we talked about it. So it's worked out really well over there, as Becky was saying. And I think that will be one of the main things that people will want to use in the future, especially for golf cart pass. It works wonderful. So anyway, thank you for putting this together.
Yes, sir.
And be a lot less hassle for all of us, I think, in the future.
Thank you.
Question?
We have a question.
Thank you. Mr. Eisenbrack, as you know, the Saddle Creek subdivision has for a long time wanted to find a safe way to cross 140. And I'm not sure that there is one necessarily, but do you think the state would permit a rapid rectangular flashing beacon at that location?
Possibly. We have a project right now to extend a multi-use trail and sidewalks up from the new roundabout up to the entrance in Saddle Creek, and it does include a crossing. It includes one of those raised islands in the Gore area with a crosswalk and potential for a rectangular. That's part of the design that we're doing right now.
So there's going to be a raised sidewalk in 140?
Not a raised sidewalk, I'm sorry. One of those raised concrete islands like we have on Midtown or we have in Crabapple.
Right.
So it'll be a splitter island. It'll be the pedestrian refuge, and I don't think I've seen the final design, whether it's a Z crossing or whether it's the refuge, but there's a left in, and then there's a gore on the opposing left, because there is no opposing left, and then those gores are ideal locations for these types of crossings. So yes, we are working with the department on those very issues. I think a rectangular rapid flashing beacon would be something that would be something that we would consider. Did it get included in the final design? Do you know? Do you know, Dave?
Don't
Just-
remember. I will
yeah, it seems
research
like-
that and send you an email tomorrow.
Okay, it seems like it would be an appropriate place for
Yes,
one,
sir.
because if there's ever a place where you have potential pedestrians crossing and you want to alert the traffic in a significant way, that would be it.
Right. This is the southern entrance where there's only one entrance to the east, but there's no opposing entrance to the left. But but we have considered the sidewalk and the trails coming up, and then there will be a pedestrian access to that stub road, so the kids can go to the pool and the tennis courts that are right there. Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Move to approve.
Thank you very much.
Recommendation for closure to discuss personnel and real estate. Do we have a motion? Motion by Councilmember Price. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. All in favor, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. We're adjourned. Good job.